The seventh best second baseman of the 1950s goes to Boston Red Sox and Chicago White Sox, Billy Goodman. The very versatile Goodman, who would play every single position except for catcher and pitcher during his career. In 1950, he batted .354 to win the American League batting title, and he finished second, runner-up to Phil Rizzuto in the American League MVP voting. Over the next 7 seasons, Goodman would hit .294 or better each season, and his on-base percentage would never dip below .250, and it would typically be over .370. He was not much of a power hitter, but he scored over 100 runs 3 times, and he was over 70 runs 6 times. For the decade, Goodman hit 302 with over 650 runs scored and over 400 RBIs. Next up was the 1953 Rookie of the Year winner, Brooklyn Dodger Jim Gilliam. And you might be thinking, wait just a minute here. Jackie Robinson played second base for the Brooklyn Dodgers in the 1950s. Well, it turns out that Jackie Robinson played second base for the Brooklyn Dodgers up until 1952. From 1953 on, he was primarily a third baseman and an outfielder. In fact, he only played 36 games as a second baseman from 1953 on. Okay, back to Jim Gilliam. So like I said, he was the 1953 Rookie of the Year winner. He only hit 6 home runs that year, but he led the league with 17 triples. On top of that, he scored 125 runs with 63 RBIs. He had 21 stolen bases, and his 100 walks was second place, trailing only Stan Musial. Playing the role for most of the decade as the Dodgers leadoff hitter, he would score 100 runs or more 4 times, and not once during the entire 1950s did he score less than 81 runs. His best season was likely 1956 when he hit a career-high even 300 batting average. He finished second in walks that season behind teammate Duke Snider. He finished second in stolen bases behind Hall of Famer Willie Mays. His on-base percentage was .399 that season, and he finished 5th in National League MVP voting. During his career with the Dodgers, the switch-hitting Gilliam went to the World Series 7 times, winning the 1955 World Championship when the Dodgers were in Brooklyn, and then winning it again 3 more times when the Dodgers were in LA. For the decade, Gilliam scored over 700 runs, had 130 stolen bases, 39 home runs, and a .272 batting average. In 5th place, another Rookie of the Year award winner, this time from 1951, New York Yankee Gil McDougald. Gil spent quite a bit of his time playing shortstop and third base, but if you do the math, he spent more innings playing second base than either of those two. McDougald was a 5-time All-Star that hit double digits in home runs nearly every single season, and then in 1956 he had a career-high .311 batting average with an on-base percentage of over 400. Receiving votes for MVP at the end of 5 different seasons, McDougald was also the very first rookie in World Series history to hit a grand slam. For the decade, McDougald had 600 RBIs, over 500 runs scored, a .277 batting average, and 104 home runs. Despite growing up dreaming of being a Mexican bullfighter, Bobby Avila would grow up to be a Major League Baseball star with the Cleveland Indians. A 3-time All-Star, in 1954, Avila would bat .341 and win the American League batting title. That season, he would hit career highs with 15 home runs, 112 runs scored, 67 RBIs, and an on-base percentage of .402. He would finish 3rd in MVP voting, and he was the Sporting News Player of the Year. 1954 would also mark the last time that the Cleveland Indians would make the World Series for more than 40 years. The 1950s was a tale of two halves for Avila. In the first half, he would hit .307 with a .377 on-base percentage and help the Cleveland Indians make it to that 1954 World Series. While in the second half of the decade, he would hit .251 and bounce around with four different teams. For the decade, Avila did hit 80 home runs. He had over 450 RBIs, scored over 700 times, and had a batting average of .281. The third greatest second baseman of the 1950s goes to a career 10-time All-Star, Red Schoendiest. Playing most of his career with the St. Louis Cardinals, but partly with the Milwaukee Braves and the New York Giants, Schoendiest is the first player on this list to be a member of the Hall of Fame. Schoendiest wore a Major League uniform for a whopping 74 consecutive years. He won World Series championships in 1946 as a player with the St. Louis Cardinals. He won it again in 1957 as a player with the Milwaukee Braves. And he won it a third time in 1967, again with the St. Louis Cardinals, but this time as their manager. A very good hitter, but an even better fielder, Schoendiest led the National League in fielding percentage 6 times. In 1950, he handled 320 consecutive chances without committing an error, and in 1956, his fielding percentage of .9934 was the National League record for 30 years until 1986 when Ryne Sandberg broke it. Schoendiest hit over 307 times in his career, including 1953 when he topped out at 342. In that same 1953 season, Schoendiest would have career highs in home runs with 15, 107 runs scored, 79 RBIs, 60 walks, and an on-base percentage of .405, all in a season in which he would finish 4th in National League MVP voting. For the decade, Schoendiest hit 69 home runs with over 500 RBIs, over 700 runs scored, and a batting average of .297. A couple of very quick honorable mentions. Pete Runnels, who spent most of the decade with the Washington Senators, but his two best seasons during the decade were in 1958 and 1959 with the Boston Red Sox. During just those two seasons, he had a combined 198 runs scored, 182 walks, a batting average of .315, and an on-base percentage of .418. Next up was a 3-time All-Star with the Cincinnati Redlegs, Johnny Temple. Temple was an excellent fielder that led the league in putouts 3 times and double plays once. With the bat, he hit over 303 times, and thanks to a very high walks to strikeout ratio, he had an on-base percentage of over .380 4 times. Coming in second place, another Hall of Famer, this time Chicago White Sox, Nellie Fox. Fox is another great example of a very good hitting second baseman that was an even better fielder. In 1952, he would lead all second basemen in putouts, and he would continue to lead the league in all second basemen with putouts for the next 9 seasons. During that stretch, he would also lead the league in fielding percentage 6 times and assists 6 times. Great with a glove, but no slouch of the bat either. He led the league in hits 4 times, he batted over 306 times, and during the course of his career, he accumulated over 2,600 hits. His greatest strength may have been his great eye and his remarkable patience at the plate. He led the league in the least number of strikeouts per at-bat, 13 times. And from 1947 to 1964, he never struck out more times than he walked. In fact, for the length of his career, he walked 719 times while only striking out 216 times. His career strikeout rate of 1 strikeout every 42.7 at-bats ranks him 3rd all time. It's hard to pinpoint which season was Nellie Fox's best, but I think it might have been 1957 when he hit .317 and had an on-base percentage of over 400. That same season, he won the first ever Gold Glove Award, and he finished 4th in American League MVP voting. And despite my opinions as to which season might have been Fox's best season, it was actually 1959 that he won the American League MVP award and helped lead the Chicago White Sox to the World Series. For the decade, Nellie Fox was a 9-time All-Star and had an even .300 batting average. He had over 500 RBIs and scored over 900 runs. You could make a very strong argument that Nellie Fox was the greatest second baseman of the 1950s, but I'm going to give that honor to Jackie Robinson. Robinson and Fox actually had very similar numbers for the decade, but Robinson accumulated his numbers in just 7 seasons, and that, combined with all the crap he had to put up with because of the color of his skin, I give the nod to Robinson. Jackie Robinson played for the Brooklyn Dodgers for 10 seasons. During that time, he was named the 1947 Rookie of the Year. He was named the 1949 MVP of the Year, and he led the Dodgers to the World Series 6 times. Then in December of 1956, the Brooklyn Dodgers did the unthinkable. They traded Jackie Robinson to the Dodgers' crosstown rival New York Giants for a journeyman pitcher named Dick Littlefield and $30,000 cash. Rather than accept his fate and wear a New York Giants uniform, Jackie Robinson decided to retire. Robinson was famously given the opportunity to become the first African-American baseball player in over 60 years, and he sure made the best of that opportunity. In his relatively short career, he led the National League in double plays 5 times and led the National League in fielding percentage 3 times. On the base paths, he led the National League in stolen bases twice and averaged nearly 20 thefts per season. With a bat in his hand, he hit over .296 his first 8 seasons in the league, and 4 of those seasons was over .328, including 1949 when he hit .342. For the decade, Robinson hit 97 home runs with nearly 500 RBIs, nearly 600 runs scored, and a batting average of .311.